Hello and welcome to Geek History Lesson. I'm Ashley Victoria Robinson.
And I'm Jason Inman. Welcome to your Mind University, because we are the podcast Geek History Lesson, where we take one character from pop culture or various different types of ethnicities and tell you exactly how they fit into your lives, your family's lives, and your comic book lives. And today, Ashley, who are we talking about?
We are talking about the one, the only, the sometimes Asian Psylocke.
The sometimes Asian Psylocke.
Oh man, it's a whole point of contention throughout many events in her life.
Oh, okay. Well, we're talking about her because the X-Men Apocalypse movie is out there.
It's true.
And just like Batman v Superman, X-Men Apocalypse is a huge hit in Ohio. It is massive.
Only in Ohio.
Ohio loves the comic book movies. They, for some reason, didn't like Civil War so much, but man, they love Apocalypse and Batman v Superman.
Well, there you go.
So let's dive right into this lesson. Olivia Munn, of course, plays her in the movie. There won't be any spoilers for the movie, so don't worry if you're worried about that. But we're going to tell you everything you need to know about Psylocke because she was a pretty cool part of the movie, I thought.
I thought so, too.
And Olivia Munn did a pretty good job, so we want to learn everything about her because she's more than just a horseman.
She's more than just a pink bathing suit.
She's a horse lady. So we're going to drop into the 10-cent origin, which is the first section of our podcast, where we teach you the Cliff Notes version of everything you need to know about Psylocke in case you encounter Mr. Jim Lee, the man who drew her for a very long time, and he's like, yo, tell me who my character Psylocke is. I forgot.
To which you respond, yes, Mr. Lee. Of course, Mr. Lee.
Yes, sir, Mr. Lee. Yes, sir.
Before we do jump into that, I do want to shout out Cool Blaze on YouTube. Requested that we talk about Psylocke. So we are doing this for you, Mr. and or Mrs. Cool Blaze. Thank you for your request. So 10-cent origin. She is a Marvel Comics character, obviously. Her name is Elizabeth Betsy Braddock. So when she's not being Psylocke, we're going to call her Betsy. I didn't know that that was her real name.
I knew about Betsy, but Betsy is interesting. Some of the older Marvel heroes, they all have Betsy.
Betty.
They're B names.
They're 50s names.
You don't get that very much often.
No. Her aliases have included Psylocke, Captain Britain, Lady Britain, and Lady Mandarin.
Ooh, Lady Britain.
That's right.
Okay.
And while she is a Marvel Comics character, she was created as a Marvel UK imprint character.
Okay.
More on that shortly. Her first appearance was in, fittingly, Captain Britain, Volume 1, Number 8, published in December of 1976. Now a very expensive issue.
She's an older character than I thought. I thought she was an 80s character.
That was when she grew to most popularity, but I mean, we're only 4 years away from the 80s at this point. She was created by Chris Claremont and Herb Trimpe, my favorite name in all of comics. She is a human mutant, and her team affiliations have been the X-Men, the Captain Britain Corps, Excalibur, Exiles, The Hand. That's it.
Oh, she was a member of the Hand.
She was a member of the Hand.
Oh, cool.
Very briefly, and it's not important.
All right, so let's get to
No. Her abilities.
Oh, my bad.
Let me tell you her abilities.
I keep cutting you off, and I apologize.
That's no worries.
I'm so excited about Psylocke.
Her abilities include telekinesis, telepathy, precognition, a psychic katana and knife, and mastery of martial arts like every other superhero in the world. Okay, that's it. I'm done. Now we can move on.
Now we're done?
We are done. I promise. Totally.
Okay, cool.
Olivia Munn plays her in the movie.
Okay. Now we're going to move into Meet Cute.
Yay!
All right, I was just testing Ashley to make sure we were in the right section because I'm jumping ahead. Meet Cute section of this podcast is where we tell you where we first encountered the character of Psylocke, where we first remember meeting or reading this character. Ashley, where did you first encounter Psylocke?
Well, because I'm a tiny child of the 90s, of course, she appears in the X-Men animated series. Still one of the greatest cartoon themes of all time. She's a pretty minor part in there, and I don't have any specific memories of her appearing, but I've seen all the episodes. And then I used to have this book that you could buy at Barnes & Noble. It's about 2 feet tall by a foot wide, and it's black, and it has a giant X on it, and it's like an X-Men encyclopedia. And I had it on the floor in my apartment when I used to live in Ottawa, Ontario, Canada, and a friend of mine named Fiona came over, and she was like, oh, I like this X-Men character who's like Asian and wears no clothes and has psychic powers. And we spent like 2 hours flipping through the book trying to figure out who it was, and that was my first very active memory of being like, oh, Psylocke, who's Psylocke?
Because you were like, Eureka, Psylocke!
There she is.
Okay, cool.
So that's my meet cute on Psylocke. How about yours?
My meet cute on Psylocke, of course, goes to a weird tale. Have you ever heard of Publishers Clearinghouse?
I have.
Okay.
They give away money.
Yeah, well, Publishers Clearinghouse, it's basically a big scam that tries to get you to sell you magazines, and there's little stickers, right, you know, and they give you the idea that if you subscribe to a magazine, there's a chance chance you could win the $1 million. You'll never win the $1 million. Never happens. But my grandmother and my mother would enter these contests all the time.
Oh, bless them.
With the hopes of getting $1 million. And my grandmother used to, in Publishers Clearinghouse, anytime she saw a comic, she would just take that sticker, because a few of them would sneak in. Mm-hmm. She would take that sticker and she would order it for me.
That's really nice.
So thanks to my grandmother, I got Superman Adventures. And
awesome.
I also got Uncanny X-Men. Now, at the time, Uncanny X-Men was written by Scott Lobdell and drawn by Joe Madeira.
Yes.
Now, one of my favorite artists of all time. And in that storyline, there's a storyline where something's wrong with Archangel. It's been years since I read the storyline. But her and Archangel, so Betsy and Archangel, are dating.
Yeah, that's a common theme.
And so it comes to this whole thing that she has to sacrifice her life somehow to save him.
We're going to talk about
And then I remember the storyline ends with she gets a big red mark on her eye.
Yeah.
And there you go. And that's the first time I remember like encountering Psylocke, because I watched the X-Men cartoon as a kid. I never remember seeing her on it.
She only appears in the final episode, and I think she's in less than 10 of them, so she's kind of a background character.
So
really.
that would explain it. I also remember she had a really, really cool action figure back in the day where you could put her little Psyblade in her arm and you could press a button on her back and it lit up.
If someone has that and they don't want it and they want to send it to the Mine University to dress our set, I will pay shipping for it.
They had a whole set, because I could never find the Psylocke for it, but I found the Juggernaut, because you had the Juggernaut with a mallet and he'd like light up I had the Juggernaut.
Oh, I know that one.
I had the Juggernaut, yeah.
That's so cool.
So there you go. Yeah, send it to the Mine University. All right, so let's hop right before we turn this into Action Figure Weekly.
Yeah, really.
Let's hop into the main section of this podcast, the History 101, where Professor Ashley will psychically prepare us for pretty Psylocke.
Man, if I would if I could.
Did you like all those peas?
I did good plosive exercises. So, Betsy was a little British girl born to little British parents. She's white. She's super white, the way British people are super white.
Okay. She's white.
And her parents are not of this earth. They were sent to Earth from the other world. The other world is this weird mystical place in the Marvel Universe that we'll talk a little bit more about.
Okay.
So they came to Earth. They had two children. They had her older brother, Brian Braddock, who will eventually become Captain Britain.
Captain Britain.
And then they had little Betsy. Her parents died tragically, because it's Marvel Comics, in a laboratory explosion when she and her brother were in their early 20s. So they were pretty young to lose their parents. And it was caused by a malfunctioning computer creation called Mastermind, who was self-aware and sentient.
I know Mastermind.
Built by her father. Who quickly went on to become a very important Marvel 616 universe villain.
Yep.
So thank you for that. And then Chris Claremont originally introduced her just to be basically the kid sister to Captain Britain. But they did this weird thing where they made her a career charter pilot with established psychic powers.
Wait. So she was like mutant wings?
Yes. I barely understand that reference, but I'm going to say yes.
Okay. All the old people know what I'm talking about.
All right. Thank you. I didn't call you old. Jason called you old. There's no explanation given at this time in her creation as to where her powers have come from, how they manifested, or what their restrictions were. In that way, she's a little bit like Scarlet Witch. We're going to see her powers change a lot throughout her history.
Okay.
So one day she's flying her older brother, Brian, back to their familial manor, because they're rich and they live in Britain, and so they live in a manor.
And she's just his charter pilot chauffeur?
He's famous. I mean, she's a girl. It's the 70s. What else is she going to do? She's wearing a stewardess outfit.
Fair enough.
It's very Pan Am.
She wears a stewardess outfit while she flies?
Yeah, like you do.
Would you like your nuts, sir?
And of course, they crash horrifically, and it turns out that they were brought down from the sky by the psychic powers of Dr. Syne, Synne. So I'm going to say Syne.
Okay.
A.K.A. Christopher Thorne, who was a former colleague of their father. Her father palled around with some real jerky jerks that liked to kidnap her.
Okay.
So this attack forced Betsy to see her brother projected as a horrible monster, and she physically attacked him, but because he's a man, he managed to overpower her, and it was okay.
Okay.
As a result of his attack, she's taken to a nearby psychiatric hospital run by the evil Dr. Syne, who brought them down in the first place, and his minions.
That's some bad luck right there.
Well, it's Britain. It's a small country. When when her brother...
Ashley said that, not me.
I did. Well, you insulted old people.
Britain, you're a very big country.
No, you're not. When her brother Brian finally freed her, the Dr. Syne revealed that he was actually an agent of the Red Skull. And he took them both hostage. Again.
Hello, mein Führer.
Because they're really crappy at escaping.
Okay.
They're like so bad at getting out of places. But have no fear, because Captain America showed up to save Captain Britain and his little sister Betsy.
Wait. Did he really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's so cool.
And this is the point where I'm doing research for this lesson. I'm like, did they call her Betsy because it kind of sounds like Bucky? And she's the sidekick to Captain Britain.
I mean, that's kind of a stretch, I think. But.
So during this time afterwards, when she is recovering...
By the way, sorry to interrupt you.
Please.
I really apologize for that. But I want to just point out to the worldwide listeners, America saving Britain, you're welcome.
Rude. You were supposed to be on Britain's side just a minute ago? Super rude. So during this time of recovery after this huge trauma, she experiences her first recorded, quote, psychic incident. Although it has been retconned that she had a bunch previously, but there you go.
So is this sort of the start of her mutant powers?
Yeah, of them really manifesting in a powerful way.
Got it. How rough ballpark, how old would you say she is now?
22, 23.
Okay, cool.
She's in her 20s.
So she's a late bloomer on the mutant powers?
Yes, but she's not a mutant yet. Like, they retconned her to be a mutant. Right now, she's just a girl with psychic powers.
Okay, cool. All right.
In publication history.
Yes.
So she's in this hospital. She's recovering. She has a dream of her brother Brian dying in battle against Lord Hawk, also known as Willard Scott. Now, Jason, I want to know, are you familiar with Lord Hawk?
Well, all I will say is that he is the evil nemesis of the Falcon.
Doesn't really matter because he's appeared in less than 20 issues throughout the history of Marvel Comics.
I went with Hawk and Falcon.
He's really mediocre.
Maybe he's a Robin villain. I don't know.
Well, we're in the Marvel universe.
I mean, maybe Robin just pervades. I don't know.
Well, Dick Grayson's pretty cool. So less than a year into her existence, Chris Claremont decided that being a charter pilot is not quite sexy enough.
Okay.
So after she recovers from this psychic freakout that she has, Betsy becomes a professional model because that's sexy, right?
Well, you know,
it's 1977.
I don't know.
Twiggy.
If flying those planes in the G-forces, you get amazing forearms.
I guess. So, and you can't eat when you're in a plane.
Maybe she was a hand model. You sure she was a full body model?
No, she's a runway model.
Oh, okay.
There are some. If you search for Psylocke and you search for like Psylocke 1970s or whatever, you'll see a lot of
runway
full
pictures?
body like fashion spread kind of inspired art, which it's really pretty to look at, but really out of place in a superhero comic.
Got it.
So Captain Britain eventually leaves her in England, leaves her all alone to go to America and finish up his studies. So he's going to go to like university. He's like 27.
Let me just point out.
He's like, I need a baccalaureate.
Let me just point out again. Captain Britain going to university in America. Just throwing that out there.
You're all our British listeners are going to hate you.
I'm gonna irritate everybody in this podcast.
I was trying to come up with an imperialism joke. I couldn't quite manage it. So while she is left alone, her psychic experiences ramp up and go more and more unchecked until eventually she makes contact with a Psi agent at Strike. S.T. Like S.H.I.E.L.D. But Strike. Jason, do you know what Strike is?
I've heard of them. I don't know exactly what they are because I believe, and I'm gonna guess.
Okay.
I believe they are the European version of S.H.I.E.L.D.
They are the UK version of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
And a STRIKE stands for Special Tactical Response for International Key Emergencies. Really kind of shoehorn that
I've never actually read a comic where they've been in, but I've read a comic where they've been mentioned.
Again, they are very prominently featured in this Captain Britain stuff, which kind of died out around mid-'80s.
Yeah.
But I was impressed. I had never heard of them before I did research on Psylocke. So she makes contact with STRIKE. She talks to one of their agents, and she's recruited by a guy named Agent Matthews, who in the next issue is renamed Agent Gabriel because why not? So beyond his interactions with Betsy, Matthew/Gabriel is a pretty unimportant character. They have a whirlwind romance, which is going to set up a trend for Psylocke going forward.
Say that again.
They have a whirlwind romance.
Okay, you just kind of blurred the W's a little bit there.
Whirlwind.
Whirlwind.
There you go. You're welcome for that.
Was it in America?
No, she's in Britain. I will come across this table.
All these British people are going to America.
Well, Captain America came here first.
Oh, that's true. Okay, fair enough.
Betsy eventually breaks it up with Matthew/Gabriel in order to take Thomas Lennox as a lover. And what's the best thing about Thomas Lennox?
I know that name.
Well, he has the same psi-based power as Betsy and appeared in less than 13 comics. He's really not that important.
Oh, I've heard that name before, though. Crazy.
It might have been mentioned in dialogue, but like he's so...
Okay.
All these early Marvel UK guys are just like have no consequence.
Very minor.
So under the guise of her modeling career, she attempts to infiltrate the London branch of the Hellfire Club. Now, I know you know what the Hellfire Club is. They are, of course, the wealthy British social club with international branches that the Marvel Universe basically uses as a vessel for evil/evil mutants.
It's Kevin Bacon's parlor to watch lingerie models.
You're not wrong. So the reason that she's going after the Hellfire Club is because she's learned that her father was in the Inner Circle. He was a member of the Inner Circle, which means that he was probably particularly evil in his own right. And of course, while she's in there, she must be saved by her brother, Captain Britain, because he's a man, in the nick of time, despite the fact that he'd been adventuring in different universes.
Oh, so he's Captain Britain by this point.
Yes.
Okay, got it.
He's been Captain Britain the whole time that she's been a character.
Last time we heard of him, he was studying in America.
I know he was still Captain Britain though.
Oh, okay.
This is not the Captain Britain lesson, but
in my head canon, he was like, smoking J's with President Obama.
You're probably not wrong. So he basically shows up, even though he's been kind of hopping around the multiverse. They're not in direct contact, and they haven't seen each other for years because why let her save herself when a man could do it? So following this, it is revealed that Strike had been taken over and run by the villain Vixen. Not the interesting African lady.
Okay.
An enemy of Captain Britain, again, very minor, and that she had ordered attack on all psi-powered agents in order to get Betsy out of her way and take over.
Interesting. Okay.
So while on the run from Vixen's agent with two of her fellow agents, Betsy and her friends meet up with Hercules, and she sleeps with Hercules.
Wait, Betsy sleeps with Hercules?
Yeah, it's so weird. It's just like they're running around in like the English countryside, and then he's there, and then they're all on the same team, and then they sleep together. And at this point, I would like to point out early that this proto Psylocke, because she's not Psylocke, she's still just baby Betsy right now, is
and she's still white.
And she's still white. She's an awful lot like early She-Hulk in that they're treated incredibly poorly and basically only exist to sleep with the various Marvel men of the universe.
Maybe it's just a weird Marvel thing that in the 80s the women superheroes are that's kind of weird.
It's bad, man, and it's only going to get worse.
Oh, no.
So Betsy's eventually captured by the government forces, like happens, and she ends up in a concentration camp.
Because those are still around?
Well, because they're for mutants.
All right.
They're for people with enhanced abilities if you're in the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Okay, all right.
So during her time in this camp, she meets a character named Victoria Bentley, who is a friend of Doctor Strange, and she learns how to harness her trauma into her psychic powers and grows more confident and powerful until the time that they are freed using her magical powers. And of course, where are you going to go when you just got out of a concentration camp? Back to your giant family castle thing in the British countryside.
Oh, I was going to say Disneyland.
Yeah. Well, Disney Europe, it's not that great.
Euro Disney's not around yet.
No, that's true. You're definitely right.
You know where Disneyland is, right, though?
What?
America.
During this time, when she's back there, Captain Britain fights the villainous Captain Britain. Okay. Not to be mistaken because it is spelled Kaptonbriton.
Was he communist? As well?
I wish.
Oh, okay.
He's from another universe, and Captain Britain of the 616 dies. So what does Betsy do but takes up his mantle of Captain Britain and kind of does that for a while, and it's really silly and inconsequential.
She was Captain Britain. That's crazy.
And Lady Britain, yeah. But it basically, like, all this stuff happens in less than 5 years.
Yeah.
But it's so crazy that we had to go over it. So fun fact, as Captain Britain, she meets Agent Matthew/Gabriel again, and they become engaged and move to Switzerland. And the reason that they move to Switzerland is because she's temporarily blinded. It doesn't really matter why. And she needs to recuperate.
Just like comic book. It doesn't matter why she's blind.
It doesn't matter. But it's kind of the joke in America that, like, if you want to get better, you go to like Arizona, and in Europe, if you want to get better, you like go to Switzerland. So they're going to go to Switzerland so she can get her visions back and they can get married abroad.
Okay.
And now I'm so excited I hit my mic. She's finally ready to become Psylocke.
Whew. Wow.
That is less than 10 years of publication comics
I don't even know where we are now.
We're about 1985.
She's at Euro Disney, right?
She's at, yes, in Switzerland.
Euro Switzerland.
Disney Swiss. Swiss Disney.
Swiss Disney.
Swiss cheese.
Yep.
While in Switzerland, Betsy is kidnapped by two really lame characters named Mojo and Spiral that you really don't need to know anything about.
God. Okay, we should tell them. Mojo and Spiral. Spiral's our lady with several arms.
Yes.
And Mojo is a big fat Jabba the Hutt wannabe who makes people fight for TV shows. There you go.
So what they do is they're like, you're blind. Let's give you robot eyes. So they give her robot eyes and she can see again, but through the robot eyes, they can mind control her and they force her to star in a TV show called Wild Ways, where they use her to kidnap children with her psychic powers.
Oh, of course.
So while all this is going on, she kidnaps 2 new mutants who also happen to be students at the Xavier School for Gifted Youngsters named Sunspot and Wolfsbane. Now, Sunspot and Wolfsbane are actually pretty cool characters. Do you know why they're so cool?
Because Wolfsbane is going to be played by Maisie Williams in the upcoming New Mutants movie.
Because Sunspot and Wolfsbane are patrons of things that they like, and they have each donated to patreon.com/Jawin, Jawin.
I didn't see that coming.
That's a hell of a segue. Sunspot donated at the $3 level.
Wow.
Where you get...
Good job, Sunspot.
Thank you. Where you get, even though he's kind of dead in the movies, you get Geek History Lesson dearly. And Wolfsbane is donated at the $5 level, where you get the Geek History Lesson extra podcast, where today we're talking about...
Wolf Girl likes the extra?
Yes, Wolfsbane.
Well done, Wolfsbane.
Where today we're going to talk about our thoughts about the X-Men Apocalypse movie.
Wait, so you're saying that the only way that they can hear our full spoiler-filled review on X-Men Apocalypse is if they become a $5 patron?
Like Wolfsbane.
Like, wow, Wolfsbane. Thank you, Wolfsbane.
Yes. So
wow. I've never liked a fictional character so much.
So much. Be like Sunspot, guys. Be like Wolfsbane, ladies. Donate at patreon.com/Jawin. Everything helps us keep our lights on here at the Mind University School for Gifted Podcasters.
And we just want a really quick thank you to everyone who does it already.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. So, as you've probably guessed, Sunspot, Wolfsbane, and Betsy, at this time, they all kind of sit down together and they're like, hey, we have psychic powers.
Oh, for a second there, I thought you were going to be like, they sit down together and they're like, hey, have you heard of this Patreon for Geek History Lesson?
And then they all pull out their credit cards and they donate. It's really great. And of course, this is the beginning of Psylocke as a mutant. This is where that retcon comes in. She is immediately invited, basically sights on scene, to be a team member because she battles. She's like staying at the Xavier School for Gifted Youngsters. Sabretooth breaks in. She kind of beats him up, and then he beats her up, but kind of saves everyone, and he leaves. So they're like, you can be an X-Men.
Yeah, that starts the rivalry between these two characters that actually carries on for like 20 years.
Yes, which we will come back to. So this brings her into the New Mutants team, onto their particular team.
Nice.
So by the end of the 1980s, and we're not quite there yet, Psylocke is deep in the ridiculous Chris Claremont X-Men adventures that are really, really convoluted and really, really difficult to explain. So I'm only going to give you the bare minimum details.
All right.
For example, the X-Men fight the Crystal of Ultimate Vision, and Psylocke, Wolverine, and Storm are the only ones who are able to resist its mind control powers for totally arbitrary reasons that make less sense as you go along, because Psylocke is the only one with actual powers that have to do with being psychic. Then she leads the X-Men in battle against a foe named Roma, R-O-M-A, all in capitals, who is an otherworld associate of Merlin's. And while they're in Dallas tracking Storm, because Storm ran away because she didn't like Psylocke, but she's trying to chase Roma, she finds Storm because she psychically connects to Colossus's mind, and they have a conversation.
Sure.
Yeah. So that happens. The X-Men...
What happened?
Don't worry about it. Some Chris Claremont stuff. The X-Men next resurface in Australia because they were chasing Storm. Storm just keeps running away from them, and I don't know why.
She was a runaway. When she started, she was a runaway.
That's true. So that just keeps happening. Yeah. And they meet Roma again there, where she presents them with the Siege Perilous.
Yep.
And the Siege Perilous is basically a gem that created a portal, which granted any person who walked through it judgment and a new chance at life with a new career, home, and everything else that goes along with it. It can also make the wielder invisible to technological perception for story reasons. So a computer monitor can't see you if you're walking by.
Yeah, that's what happens, right?
Yeah, and then we never see Roma again.
Aw, Roma.
Well, she's kind of terrible, so it's okay. Immediately following this is when Psylocke begins wearing her cape and armor costume. It is probably her second most famous costume other than the purple leotard that everyone thinks of her as. If you've never seen it, I recommend Googling it. It looks freaking cool.
So they should Google Psylocke armor costume?
Yeah, or Psylocke cape and armor. Fun fact, Wolverine ordered this costume for her after her leotard was destroyed.
From Sears?
No, from the holding company that's like Luckman, Leach.
Lando, Luckman, and Lake.
There you go. And they just, FedEx it to her overnight.
You know where Lando, Luckman, and Lake are based?
Nope.
America.
I was like, space?
I actually think they're a Canadian company, so.
Oh, really?
I think so.
Oh, Wolverine.
They're interdimensional, so I assume they have a branch in America somewhere.
Canadian.
Yep.
Hereby follows a bunch of stories where Psylocke uses her psi powers to jump into other people's bodies and pilot their corporeal forms around, okay? So
She's still white?
She's still white.
Okay, good. Just checking.
So I guess, I feel like when they got Psylocke on the X-Men, somebody was like reading the old Wolfman Perez X-Men Teen Titans run and was like, you know, it's cool, Jericho. Let's make Psylocke do that.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Because she does a lot of body jumping. Mm-hmm. So the most famous of these stories where she's captured by a mob boss and forced to swap bodies with his lover, Revanche, a.k.a. Kwannon, Kwannon. And while in this body, she's brainwashed again and becomes the villainous Lady Mandarin. And this is a Japanese body.
Okay.
So when she returns to the X-Men, she joins the team that is led by Cyclops, and it's heavily suggested that she is attracted to Scott, and she even uses her telepathy in an attempt to seduce him, having been rejected earlier when she dresses real slutty and goes to a bar that he's drinking in and she kisses him.
Now this is around the relaunch of X-Men with Jim Lee and Chris Claremont. And there's actually a scene in X-Men #1 where Psylocke sexually comes out of a pool and Jean catches Scott looking at her.
Yes.
But this is also when they decided to split the X-Men into two teams, the X-Men Gold team and the X-Men Blue team. Yeah.
So Scott's reason for turning Psylocke down is that he does love Jean because he's pure hero guy. But Jean, having seen him watch her at various different times, accuses Scott of having an affair with her, and that Psylocke is using her powers to influence Scott, which is really not that much of a jump, but is not true. And Psylocke gets so mad that she stabs Jean Grey with her psychic pink knife.
Yay!
Yay! So then...
I'd do it too.
Me too. Kwannon, who's in Betsy's white body, shows up claiming to be the real Betsy. They fight. They body swap a bunch of times. Kwannon dies in the white body. So Psylocke is forever stuck living in Kwannon's Japanese body. And from this point forward... basically, she's going to be Asian. There's a couple times where she swaps back. We'll talk about one of them. But this is the Psylocke that you know and you love from all of the pinup artwork.
The Jim Lee artwork and what the movie is basically basing Psylocke around.
Well, Olivia Munn is part Vietnamese. So.
There you go.
And this is the Psylocke, again, that everyone thinks about when they talk about this character. Now, all new, all different, all new and improved Psylocke quickly begins a romantic relationship with Angel because a dude with wings. Why not?
Yep.
And she is, during this time, attacked by Sabretooth because he doesn't like her.
Nope.
And at the time, he was resistant to psychic attacks. Again, it doesn't really matter. It's just important that they fought.
Yep.
And he sends her to the Crimson Dawn dimension.
Ooh, I know what this is.
Well, what is the Crimson Dawn dimension?
I don't remember. Something that's red.
Well, it is... The Crimson Dawn is a... It's okay. It's super weird.
Yeah.
It's a Claremont thing. It's a mystic, life-giving elixir that resides in a dimension of the same name. So it's basically like the Philosopher's Stone in liquid form, but a whole dimension. Which is cool and terrible at the same time.
Oh, yeah.
So, Angel, Wolverine, Doctor Strange, and Gomurr, Gomurr, Gomurr the Ancient,
I don't know.
attempt to save Psylocke because she's locked away in Crimson Dawn, where Kuragari, the conqueror of the Crimson Dawn dimension, corrupts her mind and tries to make Psylocke his queen.
Yep.
Everyone freaking mind controls her for sex. When she returns to the 616 after being saved by all of these mutants, she is, again, forever altered, and her telepathy and fighting skills become far superior than they were before because they wanted to.
And this is where she gets the red mark on her face.
That was literally my next note. This is also when she gets the Crimson Dawn red tattoo covering her eye, which is, again, one of the more famous looks for the character.
And Gomurr's the little Chinese man. You can, if you Google...
I just don't know how to pronounce the name, and
I'm
it's
not
supposed
certain.
to be Asian.
It's always terrible when you only see a name in print.
Yes.
You don't know how to say it, and until like a movie makes a judgment call and like, this is how we say it. You know, how do you say it? So
yeah, I didn't know how to say Hermione until the movies happened.
There you go. There you go.
So then she's kind of sick of being jerked around by people psychically, so Psylocke quits the X-Men, which is a Marvel trope that we've seen for many characters. But she is tricked by the Shadow King into suppressing all psychic powers on Earth in order to allow him to mind control everybody.
I remember that storyline too.
In a move that kind of feels like it's foreshadowing what's going to happen on M-Day a little bit. So Psylocke sacrifices her telepathic powers in order to stop him. And it's a really big deal because by this point, it's kind of that mutant thing where you're very defined by your powers. What are you going to do without them?
Yep.
So Jean decides to help Psylocke get her telepathy back, but she kind of does a crap job at it because she's Jean, and Psylocke gains telekinetic abilities for the first time, which is something that will stick with her through present day, really.
Really? Oh,
yeah.
Jean Grey. It's probably because Jean Grey was like, I remember when she came out of that pool.
I was so mad.
You can't be in a pool.
Yes. So then she kind of goes away for a while. And in her next major appearance, we see Psylocke flirting with Thunderbird because her relationship with Angel had reached a dead end and they eventually had broken up. Yep. So she's mad. So she's like, I'm going to go kiss on this guy for a bit.
Why not?
She joins Jean Grey's Extreme X-Men team.
Dun, 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 dun.
And she dies defending Beast and Rogue against the villain Vargas in Valencia, Spain, and that's the end of the lesson.
Yep, that was a Chris Claremont series as well.
Yeah, nailed that. But not really.
No.
So not too long after that, literally 3 issues later, she mysteriously appears on the exact spot where she died. Because, why not, Daniel Jackson? Eventually, Captain Britain...
Stargate reference for all you that don't know. There were many people out there who were like, Daniel Jackson, what? Google
it, it's a good show. Eventually, Captain Britain, her brother, would claim responsibility for resurrecting his sister because he needed her to help him take down the Forsaken, F-O-U-R, which is basically an evil English super team.
Okay.
And then they do that, and then M-Day happens. Jason, what is the M-Day?
M-Day is a result of the House of M storyline by Brian Michael Bendis, where Scarlet Witch got mad at a bunch of mutants doing stuff, and she said, no more mutants. And then after the event happened, a whole bunch of mutants lost their powers, including Iceman, and only 198 mutants on Earth had their powers left.
The end.
Yep.
So following M-Day, Psylocke leads a team of X-Men to London because she still has her powers in order to help Captain Britain deal with the aftermath because Britain's going crazy. They are attacked by the original Professor Xavier and his original 5 X-Men from another reality. They're all actually evil. While battling the evil X-Men, Psylocke is ripped from the time stream and reappears in Panopticon.
What?
Panopticon, which is the Exiles headquarters.
Oh, cool.
And what are the Exiles? Well, they're a team of mutants that are ripped from different realities and universes to form a super team.
Basically starring Blink.
Yes. Oh, man, I love Blink. And they've had 3 separate series. I can find them all online. Psylocke joins the team right when it's going through a big shuffle, basically because they wanted her on the team.
Yep.
With many of the original team members going off to pursue their own private lives because they didn't want to be superheroes anymore. And this allowed her to play a bigger part. And this is one of her first leadership roles, which is really, really interesting.
I've never read that run of Exiles. I've read the first run. I've never read the one with Psylocke was there.
Well, you'll have to, that's your homework. You'll have to do it.
I guess. Exiles is confusing, though.
I read a couple of the issues. It is really confusing, but I think it's cool.
Exiles is one of those series that I think is well written. And it's a cool idea.
You have to read it all, though.
Well, you have to know all of X-Men history or else you're lost.
Yes. One of the coolest things about her time as an exile is that one of her teammates is the Earth 295 version of Sabretooth, and they eventually become lovers and co-leaders of the team.
Oh, that's weird.
I actually think it's kind of a really interesting nod back to her ongoing rivalry with Sabretooth. Under her co-leadership, the Exiles are pursued by alternate reality versions of Storm, Wolverine, and the Slaymaster, and eventually defeat them all.
The Slaymaster.
Don't worry about it. I wish it was like an evil Santa Claus, but it's not.
Ooh, that's even better than I had.
Right. When she finally returns to the 616 for no in-continuity reason ever given, Psylocke is promptly captured by the Red Queen, who is, of course, Madeline Pryor, who is, of course, the evil clone of Jean Grey.
And mother of Cable, Nathan Summers.
Who will become important much later on.
Who we talked about a lot in last week's episode.
That's true.
Yep.
The Red Queen at the time was leading the Sisterhood of Evil Mutants, which also had Lady Deathstrike's Spiral from before and Chimera as its members, and they put Psylocke's mind back into her original dead, white, rotten Betsy body, and they forced her to work with them. However, Betsy was able to overcome the dark within her, and she returns to her Japanese body, which she now considers to be who she is.
Oh, so she's like, my original body is not my body anymore.
She's like, they haven't put deodorant on in a long time.
I'm going to stick with the semi-used model.
Yeah.
All right.
At least I know what I'm getting into.
Right.
She then travels back in time with Beast in order to undo the events of M-Day. It's really silly. Psylocke, after that, she comes back to the present. She joins Wolverine's secret X-Force team, which is the Uncanny X-Force, with Archangel, Wolverine, Deadpool, and Phantomax all being members of the team at that time.
The murder team, as I call them, because they go around murdering people.
Yeah. She rekindles her relationship with Warren during this time and uses her powers to help him balance his Death and Archangel personas.
Yep.
And the team's main objective is to protect the child version of Apocalypse, which they fail at, so... They're not the greatest team ever.
And again, another thing that we talked about a lot last week on our Apocalypse Geek History lesson.
Yeah, can you imagine why?
Oh, wow.
When the team is attacked by the final Horseman, their representation of War instantly falls in love with Psylocke because she's so pretty in her leotard. And through a bunch of comic booky gobbledygook, Archangel becomes the new Apocalypse during the Age of Archangel storyline. And this is actually a pretty cool story. But
it is a really cool story, actually.
It is. Unfortunately, all the trades that it's collected in, which we'll talk about during recommended reading, are not called Age of Archangel, and I really think they should be. The most important thing about this, as far as Psylocke is concerned, is that she becomes the sixth representation of death.
Yep.
And she eventually has to kill Archangel.
Yep.
In order to save him, save herself, save everyone, and she gets real sad about it.
He chooses her because he loves her.
Yes, he does. I really like them as a couple.
I do too.
Warren, of course, returns to the land of the living because it's comics as his normal self, but soon after that, when Psylocke attempts to rekindle her romance with him again, they soon realize that the man that she loved originally is gone forever and it won't work, and then they break up. So this is like 3 times they've broken up, and twice because they didn't have any spark left. So then she gets captured by the Captain Britain Corps and held in the Otherworld again. And then she eventually escapes that and goes 30 years into the future.
No.
Remember at the beginning of the lesson when I said she was bad at escaping? Yeah, she's really bad at escaping. There's a bunch of stories that are told there. They're out of regular continuity, and they're homages basically back to her original adventures as a Captain Britain character.
Interesting.
Including being captured and mind-controlled by the Shadow King again. That's what's really cool about those stories. They have no consequences, and they are a little bit silly because they're calling back to an older form of storytelling.
Okay.
If you like Psylocke, they're worth checking out.
Okay, cool.
Her next major appearance is when she returns to the 616 present universe as a member of X-Force.
X-Force.
And that's a great theme.
That's the thing. X-Force. Should we West Coast Avengers this thing?
Yes.
Let's just do X-Force.
Okay, now we have to find reasons to say it. So, as a member of X-Force, they head to Genosha, not a real place, in order to save Evan, who is a child version of Apocalypse, from descending into becoming Apocalypse again, but they fail again, and Apocalypse is born again.
Ah, damn it, Betsy.
So, in publication history, we are now up to all new Marvel now.
Okay, is that the Marvel after Secret Wars or before Secret Wars? I'm confused.
This is the Marvel reboot that launched in 2013.
Okay.
So, it's after, I think, 3 Secret Wars.
Yeah. But not for the most recent Secret Wars.
No. Before.
Got it.
When Marvel first did their rebrand.
Got it.
So following...
Which was just Marvel now.
Yes. So basically the thing that happened right before this was Avengers versus X-Men.
Yep.
Which is really not a part of Avengers versus X-Men. But after Avengers versus X-Men, kind of in that aftermath, Psylocke and Phantomax go to Paris to basically get drunk, sleep around, and prove that Marvel's opinions of all their female characters isn't as progressive as everybody likes to think. Psylocke starts...
There's no undertone in that statement.
No. I was like... I did a lot of reading of the more recent stuff because it's just a lot easier to get your hands on. And from this point forward, I'm severely disappointed with how this character is treated.
Well, she's treated well in the most recent Uncanny X-Men run.
Yes.
We'll talk about that in a bit, I bet.
So Psylocke starts a relationship with Cluster. Who is Cluster? Well, Cluster is Phantomex's female self.
Yep.
It's dumb. But then...
Every Phantom X fan out there is just like, oh, screw this girl.
Is there... Okay, if you're a Phantom X fan...
I'm a Phantom X fan.
Are you?
Yeah.
I was like, does Phantom X have any fans?
But only Phantom X written by Grant Morrison.
Okay, I was like, I want to know who you are, and I want you to give me a good Phantom X story to read, because I've never read one and enjoyed it.
New X-Men.
Okay.
By Grant Morrison.
Okay. So she starts a relationship with Cluster, Lady Phantomax. But then Phantomax becomes jealous and sets the 2 women against each other, and Psylocke breaks up with Cluster/Phantomax and moves to New York to teach at the Jean Grey School for Higher Learning, which I think could have been really cool and a really interesting way to mature this character because she's kind of been stunted since we met her.
And just in case you don't know, at this point in X-Men history, the Schism event has happened, and Cyclops has gone off to make his own school, and then Wolverine has made his own school. Wolverine's school is the Jean Grey School. He renamed it Junior School for Higher Learning, and Cyclops runs off and lives in San Francisco and lives on Utopia, Utopia Island.
Yeah, it's cool.
Yep.
But Wolverine eventually has to fire her for her aggression and her violence towards her students.
Oh.
So she's like, you know who likes some good violence? Cable. So she teams up with Cable and his X-Force.
X-Force.
Being the,
you can't forget that part.
Being the second X-Force.
X-Force. It's very 90s.
Yes, that she's been a part of.
People are going to hate this theme.
And she kind of does nothing because then they reboot the universe and all new Marvel now.
Although I will say that Cable and the X-Force run...
We're going to talk about...
Oh, no. Before Secret Wars, the Cable and the X-Force run, it starts off really interesting, and then it kind of devolves because they start fighting magic, and you're like, why are mutants fighting magic?
Yeah, so right before the most recent Secret Wars happens, Psylocke asks Cable, because she's on the team, and then they have another soft reboot, and then she's not on the team, so she comes to him, and she asks if she can be on his X-Force team.
X-Force,
And the reason that she gives is that she's addicted to killing.
What?
And that it's the only time she can feel anything is when she's killing.
Listen, Psylocke, I'm Cable here.
Yeah?
We gotta talk.
Are we gonna talk about killing? I love killing.
That's exactly what we're gonna do. You
had me at hello. I mean, you had me at killing.
Listen,
Can we kill something?
No, we cannot.
Please?
I don't, by the way, I don't like the way you're looking at my dog right now, Little Ascani. I really, please avert your eyes, Betsy. Betsy.
I'm going to kill your dog.
No, Betsy, you are not. Little Scotty. You're off the team, Betsy. You're off the team.
I can't swear this is a PG podcast. Basically, that is what happens. And even though she admits that to Cable, he's like, well, you're pretty in your bikini. And they begin.
You're actually pretty in your pretty bikini, so you're on the team.
Sweet. So I'm
an 80-year-old man. Yeah. I need to get my kicks in.
They begin a romantic relationship.
Which I don't like.
And this is the part where she goes on to saying that the only way that she can feel something is by killing anything. And again, this is a couple really interesting ideas that are set up, and then they can't make the spare on it.
Yep.
So as a member of the X-Men,
nice bowling metaphor there.
I guess I'm a terrible bully.
Yep.
So as a member of the X-Men team that is also running concurrently to Cable and the X-Force and his
X-Force, you gotta get that pause.
Sorry, I'll get it down. All West Coast Avengers, and eventually it'll be the next T-shirt. She features very heavily alongside Nightcrawler, and they team up to take down the Shadow King again. But then she has her brain inverted during the events of Axis and is basically useless and has to be saved by everybody.
And Axis, of course, is where the Red Skull has the mind powers of Charles Xavier and makes the good guys bad and the bad guys good.
Yes. And then Secret Wars happens, and now we have all new, all different Marvel now.
Yep, Secret Wars reboots the universe.
Yes, she's really not featured in Secret Wars, so we're not going to talk about it. But post Secret Wars, she's on Magneto's X-Men team.
Uncanny X-Men.
And unless you want to say something about it, I was going to end it there because we always ended around contemporary times.
I was going to say this run, of course, is written by the excellent Cullen Bunn, who we had on our show last week.
Yes, who was awesome.
I've read these issues. They're a lot of fun. Mm-hmm. I actually really like Magneto's X-Men team. And there is Archangel.
Yes.
For some reason, they haven't explained it because after Secret Wars, his mind is completely wiped. Mm-hmm. So he's just an angry, mindless dog. And Psylocke controls him.
She's his handler.
Yeah, so Psylocke can telepathically be like, go attack these people, go attack these people. But if she doesn't tell him to do anything, he just kind of floats there and grimaces.
Yeah, it's really distressing, but this is a great opportunity that they've taken where they're making her useful, and it's really interesting.
Well, I think it's an interesting, and I don't. Again, Cullen wouldn't. We asked him for spoilers. He wouldn't tell us, but
he knows us Marvel snipers are here.
Yes, but I kind of wonder if he's playing with the idea or the metaphor behind what happens when somebody that you love dearly becomes a vegetable or comatose. Mm-hmm. How do you deal with that? Now, I think Archangel is not comatose. I think he's playing.
Oh, really?
From reading the book, I I think he's playing. I think he's biding his time, and I think he still has some weird Apocalypse DNA inside him that's waiting to activate.
Oh man, that's
that's what
Cullen.
That's what I think.
Cullen,
it is.
can you do that for me? That'd be super cool.
It's a good book. It's a good book.
All right, so that's my lesson on Psylocke, man. That's it. Whew.
You know what my favorite part was? Where she was on that team that I can't remember the name of.
Oh, the X-Force, right?
X-Force.
You gotta write that whole song.
How do you phonetically write that out? Figure that out, listeners.
D-U-N, D-U-N, D-U-N.
It's very 90s. I threw in that Lee-filled 90s.
D-U-N 4 times.
Cool. I was thoroughly confused through a lot of it, but I enjoyed it. I didn't know a lot of stuff about Betsy.
I didn't know a ton about her, and I didn't realize it was going to be as convoluted as it was. So I guess well done, Chris Claremont.
Yeah, I think that is the lesson that anybody should learn. When you're trying to learn something about the X-Men, it's going to be pretty convoluted.
It's the X-Men, and it's the thing where
Apocalypse wasn't that bad.
No, but Apocalypse is a villain.
Yes.
And it's a thing where if you're not Wolverine, if you're not kind of the big five of the X-Men, you go in waves of being very popular, very unpopular. So they do, when you're not popular, they let the writers do whatever they want with you.
Pretty much, right?
Which is great on the one hand, but on the other hand, comes up with really stupid storylines.
Yep.
So why don't we roll right into our recommended reading? All
right, recommended reading. This is where we tell you the books you should read if you're interested in the character of Psylocke. And of course, you can find all of our recommended reading at geekhistorylesson.com/recommended reading. Now, just to let you know, we're going back through our old catalog. Not every episode is there yet, but we're getting there, guys. We're getting there. And Psylocke will be there immediately.
Heck yeah, it'll be there. It'll be there as these words are going into your ear holes. So the first recommended reading series that I have is a series called X-Men Psylocke. It's actually a 3-book series. I don't know about this. The link that I'm sending you to, you can get all of them.
Okay.
We actually didn't talk about it in the lesson because it's a very minor side story. I will say this book would be a great book if you had younger fans, like if you had girls maybe around 12 or 13. For Psylocke, it's tame.
Okay.
She is wearing the classic costume, and she travels to Japan to learn more about Japanese culture because she wants to honor the physical heritage of her body.
Interesting.
It's a really interesting character study for her, but it does nothing to progress her in the larger sense of her character.
Okay, but you dug it.
I did.
I've never heard of this book. I'm intrigued. I'm going to read it.
It's written by Chris Yost, so...
You got Chris Yost. He's a good writer.
Yeah, so that's what you're getting. It does have David Finch covers, but I will say that as far as the subject matter goes, it is tame. Because Finch, can kind of go. He kind of go either way.
He likes the cheesecakey stuff.
Yeah, and he's great at it. The other one I want to recommend is Apocalypse the 12 Saga. That is...
Yes.
Do you want to talk about that?
No, you can talk about it.
That is the closest thing that I can give you to the Age of Archangel kind of stuff. It's in a really nice collection.
That came out last year, I believe.
Yes, so it is currently in print.
I forgot.
Get it
was
now.
she one of the 12?
Yes.
That's right, she was.
Yes.
That actually, okay.
And it's some of the best. Chris Claremont has some really great stuff and some
That's
really...
not Chris Claremont.
Well, according to Amazon, it is.
Oh, really? Okay.
So then he must have an issue. There are 4 authors credited.
Okay. Because when I think of the 12, that's about the time where I stopped reading X-Men comics. But the art's by Alan Davis.
Yes.
Who drew some of the old Marvel UK stuff, Captain Britain and Excalibur.
Yeah, he was one of the first artists to work on something.
But yeah, we talked a little bit about it last week, where it's all about the 12 mutants that Apocalypse tries to gather. I can't believe I forgot that she was one of the... Oh, come on.
Yeah, man. And this is directly what leads to, I think, Archangel's eventual choice to make her death.
Yes, which is like several years later, but still.
Yes. But if you kind of want the zeitgeist of all that, that's a great place to start. And then my final recommendation is volumes 1 and 2 of Cable and the X-Force.
X-Force! Actually, they say Cable and the X-Force.
Cable and the X-Force.
Cable and the X-Force.
Exactly. There are 2 volumes out of it. It is really entertaining. And
the first volume is better than the second.
Yes. Yep. But if you really like it, then the second one is there.
Sure, go for it.
And you get to see Psylocke in a different manner. This is probably the most up-to-date recommendation that I have for you. So if you're looking for what Psylocke looks like in the comics right now, this is a great place to start.
Cool.
Do you have anything you want to add to that?
No, but if you want some more recent stuff, The Uncanny X-Men run by Cullen Bunn out there in your comic book shops. It's not in a trade yet, but it's a fun time.
Cool.
There you go. Now we're going to move into the discussion section. That is, if Professor Ashley has a discussion about Psylocke that she wants to talk about.
I do. I have a brief one because we are... this lesson went a little
don't worry about it.
Bit long.
They can go long. Keep the students here.
All right. So one of the things that I thought that was most interesting about Psylocke, and every time I brought it up in this lesson, you chimed in and seemed to think it was really interesting, is her relationship with Warren Worthington, a.k.a. Angel. So I was wondering if you would indulge me and talk about why we think that relationship works compared to her variety of other men and women folk.
You're probably not going to like this.
Nope, please.
The reason why I think their relationship works is because they are both high-class people who have been turned into killers.
Interesting. I never would have thought about it like that.
Warren Worthington comes from a millionaire family. Betsy comes from a millionaire family.
Yeah, you're not wrong.
And he was completely brainwashed and turned into death. Lost his wings, lost everything that was original about it. Skin turned blue. She was a rich white millionaire. Her body was stolen from her. She got powers, and now she's suddenly Asian. Their stories are similar.
They've both also been death.
Very true. Very true.
Which is, I think that's kind of fascinating, because I was going to say that I think that I like Warren sometimes, but I think on their own, they're a little bit one-dimensional.
You know, I agree with you, because for me, Warren never became interesting until he was Archangel.
Right. Like, you would never just have Angel lead a series.
No. I mean, we all read The Champions. Get out of here.
Did we, though? Did we?
Some of us read The Champions.
But so I think it is very fascinating that when they get together, you're like, oh, yeah, I would totally read this. Like, this is very interesting.
I like Archangel a lot, though.
Yeah.
And Archangel has made me like Psylocke better. Although Psylocke, for me, and even after this lesson, is still one of those X-Men characters that is completely based around her look. Like,
utterly.
I think people like her because she looks cool. I don't think people like her because of her character.
People like her because Jim Lee drew her.
Yes.
That's why people
like
her.
And gave her that classic costume.
And it's too bad, because I think that there is enough there that I think she's a character who is prime for an outstanding either run on a team book or miniseries. And especially if you're going to cast Olivia Munn, who, foreshadowing, I thought did a great job in the movie. Then why would you not want to mind that a little bit more?
But we'll say at the same time that she didn't have much to do that movie. And we'll talk more about that in our full spoiler review on Patreon.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's it. That's all I got, man.
I think it's all a class thing. I think they're both rich.
I never would have thought about that. So I find that fascinating.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I think it's because they're both Richie Riches that got turned into weapons.
I thought you were going to say that, like, he tamed her or something. And I was going to be like, oh, is that one?
No. Because their relationship, I guess, I want to say it's recent, but it's not, because it happened in the 90s.
Yeah.
So it's not that recent. But ever since that happened in the 90s, they've kind of been always together.
They've been like the on again, off again. But
I like them together.
I do too.
Yeah.
And I'm looking forward to their eventual reconciliation when he is no longer a dog.
Yeah, I'm really excited to see what happens, because again, you could do some interesting things where, like, I mean, for all we know, Archangel could kill her in this new series. And what
she killed him once, so I guess he's due.
Well, think about that. What a turn that would be, because she's like the one who's calming him and keeping him calm, and being like, and she's kind of justifies why they have this dangerous weapon around.
Yeah.
Because Archangel's already proved. I mean, he almost became Apocalypse, as we learned.
Yes.
He's already proved that he can't be trusted. You cannot trust him. And if she's the one to the team being like, no, we can trust him, and then he kills her.
Yeah.
That's a great story turn. Mr. Bunn, please feel free to take any of this.
Call us anytime.
Yeah. But yeah, I don't know. They are better together. Psylocke deserves
a great series, right?
A great series.
Yep.
Yes.
Marvel can also call us at any time, and we will pitch.
There you go. Is that it for discussion?
That's it. So let's move right along to the teaching tweet.
Yes, the teaching tweet, where we're going to sum up the entire gist of the character in 140 characters or less, like it would be on Twitter.
Psylocke, : cool powers, cool weapons, cool looks, ... Remind me again why we're on a third solo Wolverine movie? The end.
Funny and meaningful.
There you go.
By the way, do you know where that tweet was written? America.
I was like, in the X-Force.
No, I was bringing back the America joke. I always like your lessons because I get to create recurring jokes. I'm happy though.
I get it. You're funnier than me.
No. I would never say that.
I'm just.
That was a very excellent lesson, and I've never implied that because I insult old people and British people. But I think we might have discovered a new West Coast Avengers in here.
Well, I'm calling it now. Episode 200, X-Force.
X-Force? Oh my God, that would be such a confusing lesson.
Hashtag episode GHL 200 X-Force.
Okay, we'll see. Hopefully we make it to 200 episodes.
Yeah, man.
But, people out there have got to start suggesting other X-Men characters so we can hit X-Force over and over and over again. And Ashley, since this lesson is over on Psylocke, where can they do that on social media?
Well, they can do that at facebook.com/geekhistorylesson, and they can do that at geekhistorylesson.com, which has several ways for you to contact us.
By the way, I am dying to do a Cable lesson.
Well, you heard it here first.
I would love to do a Cable lesson.
Why haven't you started an Instagram campaign to play Cable?
Me? I'm not old enough.
Because that's what everyone's doing.
I'm not
Hashtag Jason for Cable.
Guys, don't forget you can also find this podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, and SoundCloud. Please do us a favor. Become a member of that team that Cable led. Ashley, what's the name of that team?
The X-Force.
X-Force. Da-da-da-da.
Wow.
Okay. Yeah, giant guitar riff. And please leave us a review and a rating on iTunes. And the reason why we stress that is because it lets other members of teams like the New Mutants and stuff find us in the search algorithm.
Oh, you mean in the X-Force?
Yes. X-Force. Da-da-da-da. So that's why we stress it every week. Don't forget you can support this podcast at patreon.com/Jawin, Jawin, where we're going to have our full spoiler-filled review of X-Men Apocalypse. Is the only place where it's going to be. Don't forget, you can complain to me on Twitter at Jawin, Jawin, and they can do that to you on Twitter. Where, Ashley?
Well, you can not complain to me on Twitter at Ashley V. Robinson.
All right, that is it for this podcast. I'm Jason Inman.
I am Ashley Victoria Robinson.
And Professor Ashley, will you please, really quickly give a thank you to our student who requested this awesome lesson. They did that on YouTube. Guys, don't forget you can do that on YouTube as well under the video. What was their name again?
Cool Blaze.
Well, I want you to dismiss Cool Blaze and the rest of us out of this Psylocke Geek History lesson.
Well, Cool Blaze et al., you are dismissed to go check out the X-Force.
X-Force. Da-da-da-da.